Queen Vayara stood in the grand hall of unity, watching the human walk toward her. He was smaller than she expected. The Kethari people were tall and strong, with blue-gray skin and eyes that glowed like distant stars. This human looked so ordinary that she almost laughed. His name was Danny Cole. He came from Earth, a small planet on the edge of known space. The marriage had been arranged by diplomats from both sides. The Kethari Dominion and the Human Federation had been enemies for 50 years. Now they wanted peace. A royal marriage would seal the deal. Vayara had ruled 17 star systems for 200 years. She had defeated armies, crushed rebellions, and built an empire that stretched across the galaxy. She had expected the humans to send someone impressive. A great warrior. Perhaps. A famous scientist. A powerful leader. Instead, they sent Danny Cole, an agricultural specialist. A man who grew plants for a living. The whispers started immediately. Her advisors tried to hide their smiles. Her generals looked at the human with open disgust. Even the servants seemed embarrassed for their queen. Danny walked up the long aisle between rows of Kethari nobles. He wore simple clothes, not the fancy robes that diplomats usually chose. His hair was brown and a little messy. His face was plain and forgettable. He smiled at her, a small and gentle smile, as if he was meeting a friend rather than a queen. The ceremony was short. Vayara spoke the ancient words of bonding. Danny repeated them in her language, his pronunciation surprisingly good. When it was over, they were married in the eyes of both their peoples. That night, there was a great feast. Vayara sat on her throne while Danny sat beside her in a smaller chair. The nobles came forward one by one to offer their congratulations. Most of them barely looked at Danny. Some asked him questions designed to make him look stupid. "So you are a farmer?" asked Lord Kethmar, his voice dripping with mockery. "You grow things in dirt?" Danny nodded. "Yes, I specialize in crop development. I help colonies grow food in difficult environments." "How fascinating," said Kethmar. "Not fascinated at all. And what great battles have you fought? What enemies have you conquered?" "None," said Danny. "I'm not a soldier, I'm just good with plants." The nobles laughed. Vayara felt her face grow hot with shame. The humans had insulted her by sending this nobody. It was a message, she thought. They did not respect her or her empire. But as the night went on, Vayara began to notice strange things about her new husband. When Danny entered a room, his eyes moved quickly, taking in every detail. He noted where the doors were, where the guards stood, where the windows led. He did this so fast that most people would never notice. But Vayara had spent 200 years reading people. She noticed. When he walked, he made no sound. His feet touched the ground so lightly that even Kethari hearing could barely detect him. This was strange for a farmer. Farmers did not learn to walk like ghosts. When Lord Kethmar had mocked him, Danny's eyes had changed for just a moment. The gentle warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. It was there for less than a second, but Vayara saw it. "You move like a hunter," she said to him later, when they were alone in her chambers. Danny looked up from unpacking his simple bag. "I grew up on a colony world. Kepler 442b. It was a dangerous place. Lots of predators. That explains the way you walk." "What about the way you watch everyone? The way you memorize the room before you enter it?" He smiled that gentle smile. "Old habits. When you grow up somewhere dangerous, you learn to pay attention." Vayara did not believe him, but she let it go. She was curious now. There was something beneath this man's simple surface. Something he was hiding. Over the next few days, she watched him closely. Danny spent most of his time in the palace gardens. They had been neglected for years, filled with dead plants and overgrown weeds. Within a week, he had cleared them out and begun planting new things. Some were Kethari plants. Others were strange species from Earth that he had brought with him. "What is this one?" Vayara asked, pointing to a small green plant with red flowers. "Tomato," said Danny. "It makes a fruit that humans eat. I thought your people might like it too." She watched his hands as he worked. They were rough and calloused, the hands of someone who had done hard labor. But on his forearms, she saw scars, thin white lines that crossed his skin in patterns she recognized. Those were not farming scars. Those were the marks of blade training. Someone had taught this man to fight with knives, and he had been cut many times while learning. Farming accidents, he said, when he caught her looking. You must be very clumsy. I used to be. I got better. At night, he slept lightly. The smallest sound would wake him instantly, and he would lie still, listening, before relaxing again. Veyara had lived with warriors before. They slept the same way. She asked her intelligence officers to investigate him. They came back with very little information. Danny Cole was born on Kepler 442b. He studied agriculture at a small university. He worked for the Colonial Development Office for 15 years. His record was boring and unremarkable. Too boring. Too unremarkable. It was the kind of history that someone would create if they wanted to hide their real past. But Veyara said nothing. She wanted to see what would happen. She wanted to understand who this man really was. Meanwhile, Danny continued to be kind and humble. He learned her language perfectly within a month, a task that should have taken years. He memorized the names of every servant in the palace. He made friends with the guards, especially the ones stationed at important doorways. One day, Veyara found him reading a book about Kethari military history. Interesting choice for a farmer, she said. I like to understand the place where I live, he replied. Your people have fought many wars. I want to understand why. Most humans find our history boring. Most humans don't pay attention. He looked up at her with those ordinary brown eyes. I always pay attention. There was something in his voice that made her believe him. This man noticed everything. He was always watching, always learning, always preparing. Preparing for what? Veyara did not know yet. But she was certain of one thing. Her husband was not a simple farmer. He was something else entirely. Something dangerous, and she was determined to find out what. 6 months passed, and Veyara found herself enjoying her husband's company more than she expected. Danny had transformed the palace gardens into something beautiful. Earth plants grew beside Kethari flowers, creating combinations of color that no one had ever seen before. Nobles who had laughed at the farmer husband now asked him for advice about their own estates. He was patient with everyone. When servants made mistakes, he helped them fix the problem instead of punishing them. When guards complained about their long shifts, he brought them food and water from the gardens. When advisors asked stupid questions about human culture, he answered with kindness and humor. The palace staff loved him. This surprised Veyara. Her people were proud, and often cruel to those they considered inferior. But somehow, this quiet human had won their hearts. You are very good at making friends, she told him one evening as they walked through his gardens. It's easy, Danny said. You just have to listen to people. Everyone wants to be heard. Is that what you do? Listen? Among other things, she noticed that he had made friends with very specific people. The head chef knew everything that happened in the kitchens, where all the food came from. The chief of security knew every patrol route and every guard rotation. The old librarian knew the history of the palace, including all the secret passages that had been built centuries ago. If someone wanted to know everything about the palace, these were exactly the right people to befriend. You've discovered the hidden tunnel behind the Eastern Library, Veyara said one day. Danny looked up from his planting, dirt on his hands. How did you know? I saw you coming from that direction yesterday, but there are no rooms that way, only the tunnel. He smiled. I got lost. Found it by accident. And the passage beneath the throne room? Did you find that by accident too? That one the librarian told me about. He thought I might find it interesting. And the emergency exit from my private chambers? Danny paused. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, that one I looked for on purpose. I wanted to know how to get you out if something bad happened. It was the most honest thing he had said to her in months. You expect something bad to happen? I always expect something bad to happen. It's how I stay alive. That night, Veyara could not sleep. She kept thinking about her husband's words. He was preparing for danger. He had spent 6 months learning the palace, making allies, finding escape routes. This was not the behavior of a farmer. This was the behavior of a soldier. She decided to test him. The next morning, she invited him to watch her soldiers train. The palace guards practiced in a large courtyard, fighting with practice swords and hand-to-hand combat. They were elite warriors, the best in the empire. Danny watched quietly from the sidelines. His face showed polite interest, nothing more. But Vayara saw his eyes tracking every movement, analyzing every technique. "Would you like to try?" she asked. "I don't know how to fight," he said. "Just a simple exercise. My guards will go easy on you." She expected him to refuse. Instead, he shrugged and stepped onto the training ground. A guard named Torvin was chosen as his opponent. Torvin was young and arrogant, eager to humiliate the human in front of the queen. The fight began. Torvin attacked with a powerful strike. Danny stepped aside, letting the blow pass harmlessly. Torvin attacked again. Danny moved again, always just barely avoiding the hit. He never counterattacked, never tried to win. He simply avoided everything that came at him. The guards began to murmur. No one had ever seen anyone move like this. Danny's feet barely seemed to touch the ground. He flowed like water around every attack. Finally, Torvin grew tired. His attacks became slower, sloppier. And in that moment, Danny moved. One quick step, one gentle push, and Torvin was on the ground, confused about what had happened. "Lucky," Danny said, helping the guard up. "I just got out of the way, and you tripped." But Vayara had seen the truth. Danny had not gotten lucky. He had controlled the entire fight, waiting for the perfect moment, then ending it with minimal effort. That was not luck. That was skill. That was training. "Where did you learn to move like that?" she asked later. "Kepler, 442b, he said. "You had to be quick to survive the predators. No predator teaches you to fight like that." He looked at her with those calm brown eyes. The most dangerous predators on Kepler were human. Sometimes you had to protect your farm from people who wanted to take what you had grown. It was another half-truth. She could feel it. But she also sensed that pushing harder would get her nowhere. Weeks passed. Vayara watched her husband continue his strange routines. He woke early and exercised alone. When he thought no one was watching, she saw him once, moving through a series of combat forms with perfect precision. His body was lean and hard, built for speed and endurance. He continued reading military books. Kethari tactics, famous battles, weapons and technology. He asked endless questions about the Dominion's enemies, its weaknesses, its allies. "You are studying my empire," she said. "I want to understand my new home. You are studying it like a soldier prepares for war." Danny set down his book. For a moment, the mask slipped. She saw something in his face that was not gentle or kind. It was sharp and cold and dangerous. Then the mask returned. He smiled his farmer's smile. "I'm just curious," he said. "You know how humans are. We like to understand things." But Vayara had seen behind the mask now. She knew what was hiding there. Her husband was a weapon, disguised as a tool. The humans had sent him here for a reason. She should have been angry. She should have felt betrayed. Instead, she felt something unexpected. She felt safe. Whatever Danny Cole really was, she believed he would not hurt her. He was protecting her from something. She did not know what yet, but she was about to find out. The message came at midnight. Her cousin, High Admiral Kethvor, was bringing his fleet home from the frontier. He was coming to celebrate her marriage. Danny was in the room when the message arrived. Vayara saw him go still, like a predator sensing danger. "Your cousin," he said. "Tell me about him." "Why?" "Because the way you just tensed when you read his name tells me he's not coming to bring gifts." She looked at her husband, this strange man who noticed everything. "Kethvor has wanted my throne for 100 years, she admitted. "He believes the Dominion should be ruled by a warrior, not a diplomat. He opposed the alliance with humanity." "How many ships does he have?" 64 war vessels. Why? Danny's eyes went cold again. That sharp, dangerous look. Because I think your cousin is coming to kill you. And I'm not going to let that happen. For the first time, Vayara believed she was seeing the real Danny Cole. Not the farmer. Not the husband. Something else entirely. Something that scared her and thrilled her in equal measure. The attack came 3 weeks later, in the dead of night. Vayara was sleeping when the first explosion shook the palace. She woke instantly, her warrior instincts screaming that something was very wrong. Through her window, she could see fire in the sky. Ships were descending on the capital city. Ships bearing the markings of High Admiral Kethvor. Her door burst open. She expected to see her guards rushing in to protect her. Instead, she saw soldiers in different armor. Kethvor's elite troops. The Shadow Guard. They were inside the palace already. How was this possible? How had they gotten past security? The Queen is here, one of them announced into his communicator. The traitor is in her chambers. Traitor. They were calling her a traitor to make the coup seem legitimate. 6 soldiers entered her room. They moved with professional efficiency, weapons raised, spreading out to cover all angles. Vayara stood tall, refusing to show fear. If she was going to die, she would die as a queen. Vayara of House Kethani, the lead soldier said. You are under arrest for crimes against the Dominion. You will come with us. To face your master's justice? She replied. I would rather die here. That can be arranged. The soldier raised his weapon. Then something happened that Vayara would remember for the rest of her life. Danny appeared from the shadows behind the soldiers. She had not even known he was in the room. He must have been watching, waiting. Invisible in the darkness. He moved faster than her eyes could follow. The first soldier died before he knew anyone was behind him. Danny's blade sliding between the armor plates at his neck. The second turned toward the sound. But Danny was already past him, opening his throat with a single precise cut. The remaining 4 soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the chamber like lightning. But Danny was not where they were shooting. He had dropped low, rolled under their aim, and come up behind them. 2 more fell in the span of a heartbeat, dead before they hit the floor. The last 2 tried to fight back. They were elite soldiers, trained for decades in combat. It did not matter. Danny broke one's arm, took his weapon, and shot them both in the time it took Vayara to draw a breath. 6 dead soldiers, 4 seconds. The farmer stood among them, his borrowed blade dripping blue blood, his eyes cold and empty. We need to go, he said. His voice was flat, professional. Completely different from the warm tone she knew. More are coming. I've been tracking their communications. They have teams all over the palace. Who are you? Vayara whispered. Someone who is going to keep you alive. Questions later. He grabbed her arm, gentle but firm. Do you trust me? She looked at the bodies on the floor, at the blade in his hand, at the cold efficiency in his eyes. Yes, she said, and she meant it. Danny led her through the palace using routes she had never seen. He knew every hidden passage, every secret door, every forgotten tunnel. The months he had spent exploring had not been idle curiosity. He had been mapping escape routes. They encountered more soldiers along the way. Each time, Danny dealt with them quickly and quietly. He fought nothing like a human. He fought nothing like a Kethari either. His style was something else entirely, a brutal efficiency that wasted no movement, no energy, no time. How many have you killed tonight? She asked during a moment of quiet. 17 so far. Stay behind me. They moved through a narrow maintenance corridor that ran behind the walls of the Great Hall. Through the thin panels, Vayara could hear Kethvor's voice, addressing the captured members of her court. The Queen has betrayed our people, he was saying. She sold our honor to the humans. She married their spy and let him poison her mind. Tonight, we take back what is ours. Tonight, the Dominion rises again. Spy. He had called Danny a spy. Did Kethvor know the truth about her husband? Or was it just propaganda? Danny's jaw tightened as he listened. He's smarter than I expected. He's controlling the narrative. What do we do? First, we survive. Then we call for help. Help from whom? My people. They reached a secured communications room deep in the palace basement. It was old, almost forgotten, built centuries ago as an emergency center. Danny had found it during his explorations. Of course he had. While Vayara watched the door, Danny worked on the ancient equipment. His fingers moved across the controls with expert knowledge. This was not something he had learned from books. He had been trained to use military communication systems. This is Sergeant First Class Danny Cole, he said into the microphone, operating under Protocol Shadow Garden. The asset is secured. Local forces are hostile. Requesting immediate support at these coordinates. A burst of static, then a voice replied. Sergeant Cole, this is the battleship Ironclad. We read you. Support is being deployed. Can you hold position? I can hold for approximately 2 hours. After that, I make no promises. Understood. Strike team will arrive in 90 minutes. Hold the line, Sergeant. Ironclad out. Vayara stared at her husband. Sergeant. You are military. Danny turned to face her. For a moment, he was silent, as if deciding what to tell her. Then he spoke. I am Sergeant First Class Danny Cole. Terran Special Operations Division. I was assigned to this mission 4 years ago. My job was to infiltrate the Cathari court, gather intelligence on threats to the Alliance, and protect you if those threats became real. 4 years? The marriage was arranged 2 years ago. I know. I helped arrange it. I identified myself as the ideal candidate. The humble farmer that no one would suspect. Vayara felt her world shifting beneath her feet. Everything she thought she knew was a lie. Her marriage was a mission. Her husband was a weapon. Did you ever care about me? She asked. Or was that part of the job too? Danny's cold mask flickered. Something human appeared beneath it. Something that looked like pain. The mission was to protect you. Caring about you was never part of the plan. He paused. But I do care. That part is real. That part surprised me too. An explosion shook the room. Dust fell from the ceiling. The enemy had found them. They're coming, Danny said, picking up his weapon. Stay behind cover. No matter what happens, do not come out until I tell you. How many are out there? He checked a small scanner on his wrist. 42. You cannot fight 42 soldiers alone. Danny smiled. It was not his gentle farmer's smile. It was something darker. Something savage. Watch me, he said. And then he opened the door and walked into the corridor to meet them. Vayara had seen many battles in her 200 years. She had watched the greatest warriors of the Dominion fight and die. She had studied combat tactics from 100 different species. She thought she understood violence. She did not understand what Danny Cole was doing. Through the half-open door, she watched him engage the enemy. The corridor was narrow, which should have worked against him. Instead, he used it perfectly. The soldiers could only come at him a few at a time, and he made each one pay for every step forward. He did not fight like the Cathari, who relied on strength and aggression. He did not fight like most humans she had seen, who were clumsy and slow compared to her people. Danny fought like something else entirely. He was fast and precise, using the walls, the floor, even his enemies' own bodies as weapons. A soldier charged at him. Danny stepped aside at the last moment, redirected the soldier's momentum, and sent him crashing into his companions. Before they could recover, Danny had killed 2 more and taken position behind a support pillar. Plasma bolts filled the air. Danny waited for a pause in the firing, then moved. 3 quick shots. 3 dead soldiers. Back behind cover before the return fire came. He was reading the battle like a book. He knew where each enemy was, how they would move, when they would shoot. It was as if he could see the future. Push forward, someone shouted. He's only one man. 12 soldiers rushed the corridor at once. It was a suicide charge designed to overwhelm him through sheer numbers. Danny killed 7 of them before they reached him. The remaining 5 closed to hand-to-hand range. This should have been the end. No one could fight 5 elite soldiers at close quarters. Danny proved them wrong. He moved through them like a ghost. His blade flashed in the emergency lighting, finding gaps in armor, striking vital points. When one soldier grabbed him from behind, Danny used the hold to flip himself over the attacker's shoulder, breaking the soldier's arm in the process. He finished the fight on the ground, surrounded by bodies, his chest barely rising and falling with exertion. 19 soldiers dead in under 3 minutes. The remaining attackers pulled back to regroup. Danny used the pause to check his wounds. There were several. Plasma burns on his left arm, a deep cut on his side, blood running from a wound on his forehead. He ignored them all. "Status?" Vayara called out. "Manageable. They'll try something different next time. Probably grenades." She moved to the doorway. He pushed her back. "I told you to stay behind cover. You are bleeding. I've had worse." His casual dismissal of his injuries told her more about his past than any words could. This man had been hurt before, many times, and had learned to keep fighting through the pain. What kind of life had created such a person? "Tell me about your real past," she said. "If we are going to die here, I want to know who I married." Danny checked his weapons charge. His eyes never stopped scanning the corridor. "I was born on Kepler 442b. That part was true. But I wasn't a farmer. My parents were part of a resistance movement against a corporate occupation. The company that owned our colony was using the colonists as slave labor. My parents fought back. They were killed when I was 12. What happened to you?" "I survived. I got very good at surviving. When I was 16, the Terran military liberated the colony. I enlisted the same day. They saw something in me, some talent for violence that had kept me alive all those years. They put me in the Special Operations Training Program. The sounds of enemy activity came from down the corridor. They were preparing something. I spent 15 years as an operator, black ops mostly, missions that never officially happened. I was good at it. Too good. When the intelligence division needed someone for the Kethari assignment, they chose me because I could become anyone they needed me to be. The humble farmer. Exactly. Someone non-threatening. Someone forgettable. Someone your enemies would ignore while I learned everything about them. You knew about Kethvor? I knew he was a threat. I didn't know he would move this fast. My intelligence was incomplete." A flash of anger crossed his face. "That's my fault. I should have pushed harder, dug deeper." Vayara realized something in that moment. Danny Cole was not just protecting her because it was his mission. He was angry at himself for not preventing this attack. He felt responsible for her safety in a way that went beyond duty. "You blame yourself," she said. "I was supposed to protect you. I let this happen. You could not have known." "Yes, I could. I should have." He looked at her with those brown eyes. And for once, she saw the man beneath the soldier. "I was too busy being happy. I let my guard down because I was enjoying our life together. That was a mistake." Before she could respond, the enemy made their next move. As Danny had predicted, they used grenades. 3 explosions rocked the corridor, filling it with smoke and debris. Danny grabbed Vayara and pulled her deeper into the communications room. A wall collapsed behind them, sealing off their exit. They were trapped. "New plan," Danny said, coughing from the dust. "How long?" He checked his scanner. 45 minutes. "And how many soldiers are left?" 23. Plus whatever reinforcements they bring. The math was not good. But Danny was already moving, pushing furniture against the damaged walls, creating defensive positions. He worked with calm efficiency, like a man who had done this many times before. "When this is over," Vayara said, "we will talk about trust and lies, and whether this marriage is real. If we survive, you can yell at me all you want. I do not yell. I express royal displeasure." Despite everything, Danny laughed. It was a genuine sound. Warm and human. "Your Majesty, if we make it through tonight, you can express all the royal displeasure you want. I'll deserve every bit of it." The enemy began their assault. Plasma fire tore through the weakened walls. Danny returned fire with precise, measured shots, making every bolt count. Vayara found a fallen soldier's weapon and joined him, fighting beside her husband for the first time. Side by side, the alien queen and the human spy made their stand. 45 minutes, 23 enemies, one room. The longest 45 minutes of Vayara's life had just begun. The battle for the communications room lasted 37 minutes. Vayara would remember every second of it for the rest of her long life. The smoke and fire, the screaming of wounded soldiers, the endless crack of plasma weapons. And through it all, Danny Cole, fighting with a fury she had never imagined possible. He was wounded a dozen times. Burns, cuts, a shot that went clean through his shoulder. He kept fighting. When his weapon ran out of charge, he picked up another from a dead enemy. When that one failed, he fought with his blade. When the blade broke, he used his bare hands. The Kethari soldiers were elite warriors, trained from birth for combat. Danny killed them anyway. One after another, they fell before him. He was faster, smarter, more brutal. He gave no mercy and asked for none. Vayara fought beside him as best she could. She was no soldier, but she was a queen of a warrior race. She knew how to shoot, how to take cover, how to stay alive. Together, they held the line. 30 minutes in, the enemy tried a final desperate push. 15 soldiers charged the room at once, overwhelming the defenses with sheer numbers. Danny met them at the breach, standing in the gap like a guardian from ancient legends. What followed was not a fight, it was a slaughter. Danny moved through the attackers with terrible efficiency. He broke bones, crushed throats, ended lives with every motion. His face was empty of emotion, a mask of cold focus. This was what he really was. Vayara realized. This was what humans could become when pushed to their limits. The last soldier fell. Danny stood among the bodies, swaying slightly, covered in blood both blue and red. Behind him, the communications console crackled. Sergeant Cole. This is Marine Strike Team Alpha. We have secured the palace perimeter. What is your status? Danny touched the console. Asset is secure. I'm running low on everything. How fast can you get here? 2 minutes, Sergeant. Hold on. Danny nodded, even though no one could see him. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed against the wall. Vayara rushed to his side. Up close, she could see how badly hurt he was. The wound in his shoulder was still bleeding. His left arm was burned almost to the bone. There were cuts all over his body, some deep enough to show muscle. You need medical attention, she said. I've had worse, he replied, the same words he had used before. But this time his voice was weak, fading. Do not die on me, human. He looked up at her with tired eyes. Wouldn't dream of it. Too much explaining to do. The Marines arrived moments later. They poured into the room, weapons ready, only to stop and stare at the carnage around them. Bodies everywhere. Walls covered in blood, and in the center of it all, one wounded human and an alien queen. Holy hell, said the Marine commander. What happened here? Sergeant Cole happened, Vayara said. They took Danny to a medical ship in orbit. Vayara insisted on going with him, refusing to leave his side. The doctors were human, brought from the battleship Ironclad. They worked on Danny for 6 hours, repairing damage that should have killed him twice over. How is he still alive? Vayara asked one of the doctors. The woman shook her head in amazement. Stubbornness, mostly. And training. Special operators are taught to control their bodies in ways most people can't imagine. He was running on willpower and adrenaline for the last hour of that fight. Will he recover? He'll need months of rehabilitation. Some of the damage is permanent, but yes, he'll live. Vayara sat beside his bed and watched him sleep. This strange, impossible man. This farmer who was a warrior. This spy who had become her husband. She did not know what to feel. Anger at his deception? Gratitude for his protection? Something else? Something she was not ready to name? While Danny slept, the coup collapsed. Kethvor's forces had relied on surprise and speed. They expected to capture the queen quickly and present the court with a done deal. Instead, their assault teams were destroyed, their leader lost control of the narrative, and the Human Federation sent 3 more warships to support the Ironclad. Faced with overwhelming force, Keth Vor surrendered. He was captured trying to flee the system and brought back in chains. 2 weeks later, Vayara stood before the restored High Council. Dany stood beside her, still bandaged, still healing, but insisting on being present. "The humans sent a spy to marry our queen," one counselor said. "This is an outrage." "The humans sent a protector," Vayara corrected. "He saved my life and protected our government. Without him, Keth Vor would have succeeded. But he deceived us. He deceived you." Dany stepped forward. He was still pale from blood loss, but his voice was steady. "I deceived you because deception was necessary. If anyone had known what I really was, the enemies of the Alliance would have killed me before I could protect your queen. Everything I did to keep her safe. If that requires punishment, I accept it." The council murmured among themselves. "What should be done with you?" the head counselor asked. Dany met his eyes without flinching. "Whatever the queen decides, I serve at her pleasure." All eyes turned to Vayara. She thought about the months they had spent together, the garden he had built, the conversations they had shared. The man who had hidden his true self, but could not hide his kindness, his patience, his care. She thought about the battle, watching him stand against impossible odds for her sake. "My husband will remain my husband," she said. "He will continue his work in the gardens. He will continue to advise me on matters of security. And he will continue to be the most dangerous farmer in the galaxy." Nervous laughter rippled through the council. Later, alone in their chambers, Vayara finally asked the question that had been burning inside her. Was any of it real? The smiles, the conversations, the way you looked at me? Dany took her hand. His grip was gentle, the same way he held everything. Gentle hands that could kill in an instant. The mission was real. The cover was real. But somewhere along the way, the cover became real too. "I don't know when it happened. I just know that protecting you stopped being a job and started being something I needed to do. For myself, not for Earth. You love me? I'm not sure I know what that word means, but I know I would die for you. I almost did. If that's not love, it's close enough." Vayara leaned against him, careful of his wounds. "Humans are strange creatures," she said. "We're survivors. We adapt to anything, even feelings we didn't plan to have. My people underestimated you. They saw your size, your short lives, your fragile bodies. They thought you were weak." Dany smiled, his gentle farmer's smile. "That's our greatest weapon. We don't look like threats. It makes the surprise more effective. What else don't we know about humans?" "Oh, plenty. But you have centuries to learn. I'll teach you what I can." She looked at him. This man of contradictions. This weapon wrapped in kindness. "I think," she said slowly, "that I am glad the humans sent you, even though I lied? Because you lied. Any fool can tell the truth. It takes someone special to hide a warrior inside a farmer for 2 years and make everyone believe the disguise." She kissed his forehead gently. "You fooled even me. That is impressive. High praise from a queen. Do not let it go to your head." In the gardens below their window, earth plants bloomed beside Kethari flowers. 2 different worlds, growing together, creating something new, just like them. The alliance between humanity and the Kethari Dominion grew stronger in the years that followed. People said it was because of politics and trade and mutual benefit. Vayara knew the truth. It was because a human farmer had taught an alien queen what his species was really made of. Not weakness, not fragility, not short lives and soft bodies. Endurance, adaptability, loyalty, and a capacity for violence that they hid behind gentle smiles and humble words. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It would not make that mistake again.